So Google was once in danger of becoming completely irrelevant, but it has reestablished itself at the front of the AI pack, recently rolling out more than 100 products and beyond after Google I/O. It's also backed by Google Cloud and AI Studio. The company is really, to me, the new goat of AI models, and it's not seeming to slow down anytime soon. So, to talk about this, I invited Lynn Langit, a Google developer expert for cloud and AI, as well as an AWS community hero and a Microsoft regional director. So, like me, she's also in the Trusted Google Developer Program, and she's authored more than 30 LinkedIn Learning courses on cloud, data, and generative AI. They have amassed over 5 million views, putting me to shame. Hello, Lynn. Let's talk about this huge shift in tone from the AI industry since Google I/O. I think they really cut into the culture wars with VO3. From a developer perspective, what has been your biggest takes from all the announcements that we saw recently?
Yeah, well, first of all, hey Ray, good to see you and nice to be on.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's been really hard to keep the lid on all the things that I tested, and you probably felt the same way because coming up to I/O, like literally every day I was getting an email from Google as a trusted tester saying, take a look at this, take a look at this, take a look at this. And I was just feeling the momentum that Google, as you said, was really starting to gain very important advantage with all their different products and versions of Gemini, and couldn't say anything because we were all under NDA, right? So
Yeah.
I feel really happy to talk about this because I feel like there were over 100 announcements and I can't even make sense of grok all of them, and I tested the products. So one of the first things off the top is if you feel overwhelmed, that's like kind of normal. This was an IO like unlike other years.
Yeah, they didn't even slow down right after that. Recently, they released new versions of Flash, Flash Mini, 2.5 Flash, and officially kind of pushed those all out. And the models have been nothing short of impressive. I've really been, just unbelievably excited about all the developments. As you said, just having seen some of the things earlier was great. And sometimes you feel nervous about what to sort of even say. So I'm glad we can talk about it right now. I know that for me, the models I think is maybe primarily where the big news is at. Usually, I feel like OpenAI tries to make like some sort of big release, and they tried it with Codex. I think that's a good product, but then Google just released all kinds of stuff, competing products, and VO3, which really changed the conversation with video. So I'm not sure how you're gonna deal with all these new things. I know that recently you had the opportunity to update one of your courses that is Advanced Gemini for developers to sort of take into account some of these new features. So what can you say? What did you have to update after all these new releases? And maybe you can talk about potentially what if you could ask him for something else, what that could be.
Yeah, so I've got two Gemini courses on the LinkedIn Learning platform, a core Gemini course for developers and then an advanced. And I have updated them 3 times in less than 2 years. And each time was a 100% update because of the features and the capabilities of the model. So in this set of releases, which really just came out last month, and they cover 2.0 and 2.5. 2.5 was preview, but I could include it at that time. I kind of followed the IO keynote because it's kind of how I work too. So the first course focuses on development of prompting and prompt procedures, and that uses the Google AI Studio. And then the second course moves into some of the advanced API features, and that uses Google Cloud Platform Vertex AI. And there's a whole bunch of tools that are exposed in both the API and in the web UIs. So it's kind of how I structured these courses. It's kind of how I use the products, and it's how Google showed them too. So I feel like it's sort of a cleaner demarcation. So like you start with the AI Studio for basically everybody who's just trying things, prototyping. And then when you move to production with your production data, you need that to be protected. So you have that in a Google Cloud project, and you move into Vertex AI.
even for people who are not maybe in the trusted developer program, where you can find a few tools that are not released yet. So for example, for me, the stream section right here, this is where you can actually now already share your screen, and you can have it let you do a conversation with the Gemini chatbot and ask it to help you with a spreadsheet, or help you, look at this code that I'm doing, and it can look at the screen in real time. But not just that, I know that there's all kinds of other stuff. So VO was available here for the longest time, and so you could already generate some media through this. So it's a real gem that I don't think a lot of people are aware of. That even if you're not in the program, that you can really get a lot out of it. So I don't know if you primarily use this or something else. I know that you're also pretty involved with the enterprise, so maybe you can talk a little bit about some of those enterprise tools.
Sure. I actually use 3 tool sets, and this is kind of a pro tip because, for example, VO, which is the video generator that everybody's talking about because it's photorealistic video, and now with sound, like, ooh, that's a big deal. It's interesting the way the release is going, and this is just a tip on the tools. There's different groups at Google, and they're going to build different tools. So currently, as of yesterday, didn't check today, the most current version of VO3 with the sound is actually only available on the public Gemini.google.com as an experimental. If you look in the AI Studio, or you look in Vertex AI, it's still VO2. Which is really interesting to me that they put it out on the consumer first. And I think it's just to get the excitement. It's kind of atypical. Usually they would release it in the AI Studio first, but you have to really have all 3, right? And I think of it like different tools for different users. So business users can just use Gemini.google.com and start prototyping. And, you have integrated videos now, you have research, you have Canvas for coding there. And obviously have integration with Drive and some of the other tools. When you are translating that into a POC and requirements, that's where the AI Studio comes with, a public data. And then in the life cycle, you move into the, Google Cloud Platform with Vertex AI. One of the things that I am really excited about, and I include it in my course, is Vertex AI now has 4 tools exposed in the UI that are called prompt management, prompt lifecycle. And they are write, compare, optimize, and evaluate. And these are APIs that are exposed in Gemini that weren't exactly intuitive. So in Vertex AI, there is a section called prompt management. And I cover that in my course because, starting with a web UI makes it a little bit easier to understand because prompts are code, and we need to treat them like code now.
Not usually programming in Vertex AI, but I know that there's just so much in there that it's sometimes perhaps a little bit overwhelming. So that's, I think, where the courses that you make are so important, because people do need to sort of be able to break down what's actually relevant to what they do. So I can't imagine how hard it is to keep everything up to date. So what's your take on all these different agentic AI workflows that have sort of come to light as a result of this new technology that we called MCP, where you can actually take some of these tools and then connect them? I know that a lot of times, if you want to connect to something like a SQL database, you used to have to learn how to do like a triple left join. And nowadays, it seems like you can access some of these tools just with natural language. So how is that working out for people in the enterprise? Is that something that people are taking to, or is it just a lot of hype and news?
Well, it certainly was like the focus of I/O. And then right around that time, Anthropic had a developer conference. And it seemed like all of them had conferences around that time, and it was all around agentic AI. So I don't know about you, but I was like, couldn't watch TV that week. I had to watch all the the stuff. So I
The
actually have
sacrifices we must make, right?
right?
The sacrifices we have to make, yeah.
I actually have a LinkedIn Learning course releasing like imminently on Google Agent Space, which was announced at I/O. So Agent Space is kind of a 4th tool in this tool chain I'm talking about. Public, Gemini, then AI Studio, and then GCP Vertex AI. Agent space is when you want to make agentic AI for the enterprise internally. And I had so much fun making that course because it has not only sort of the productification of MCP, basically, but also it has an enterprise version of one of my favorite implementations. Kind of I don't know, I kind of got maybe lost in all the buzz, but Enterprise Notebook LM is the bomb. I use that for everything. If you haven't used it before, it basically allows you to pull in resources, and then it puts Gemini on it, and it's 100% grounded. So it only uses Gemini on the resources you pull in, and then it has these basically integrations where it'll do things like for the data you pull in, whether it's your own data or links or websites or PDFs or whatever, it will make an FAQ, it will make a study guide, it will make a mind map. And my favorite thing is it will make a podcast.
Wow.
And you can talk to it. And that's part of the agent space offering. It took me kind of a little bit of time to figure this out, but the way that I presented it in the course is because I thought, okay, agent space is your agentic LLMs. Why is this notebook thing in here? Why is this? But the way I kind of came to use it and understand it is agent space is sort of like the new super powered intranet that you can use natural language for, that is, set up for permissions and everything. And once you find your information, then if you want to like learn a new topic or something, for example, I'm doing a contract with Mayo Clinic. And so there's like a lot of people that have to research diseases and stuff like that. So they would go to the, if it were set up, the Mayo intranet, pull all the information, the links, and then put that into a Notebook LM and then listen to a podcast on the way home. How cool is that?
That does sound pretty cool. I know that with Notebook LM, I've heard that now you can ask, you can actually interrupt the podcast and then ask a question. And you're like, the caller is saying that they want to know a little bit more about this topic. I mean, we're seeing these like new experiences that we've never seen before. Speaking of the doctor, I was with my doctor today, and of course we were geeking out. I was asking him about AI, and he was telling me, actually, I feel like he did a better job than the AI because, of course, I did some test results, and what's the first thing I do? Drop it into Gemini and ask questions, and I have to give him props because he actually did a better job of explaining everything. But that's just revolutionary. He was saying that, wow, I really need to take into account then that when people come in, I'm assuming that they've already consulted with their doctor ChatGPT already or Gemini. And it's just a different way. And I was telling him about those features. I know that with other products, you can actually now invite, an avatar into like a Zoom presentation and interact with it in real time. And I know that I've used this feature in just even the regular Gemini, where I can ask it to, go through some data and, as you said, do some deep research. And once you've got the deep research, you can actually ask it to generate all kinds of additional sort of, ways to look at it. And like you said, one of them is a podcast. And this is, I don't know if we can hear it.
Yeah, no, can't hear it.
Oh, okay, so it might be a little bit hard to hear, but yeah, once you generate the core deep research, then you can use that research as either context for something else, or you can have it generate a podcast, or you can you can ask it to generate some code for you, and then you can use it as just a website that you can share with others. I mean, the stuff that we're getting now is just at a different level. So this is some performance report from my the traffic that I get on the different posts that I do. And I can do this. I can create a quiz now. So we're living in just a different place now where the things that you're able to do are just exploding. And the weird thing is that not everybody knows about it, right? Like you feel like you show up to your doctor and he doesn't exactly know about all these ways that he could be more productive, and ways that I told him you can grab some research, drop it into your tool, and start having a conversation about 10 different papers that you're interested in processing. And that puts everybody in a different place. And so we're in a place in the world where everything is going to change. So I know that you have talked before about education, and also the fact that many developers, they still need to master core fundamentals. I don't know if you feel that people, for example, still have to learn something like SQL in this new environment. How does that change the core skills that a developer should know?
Yeah, well, it's really for any expert in anything.
Mhm,
I heard a guy who's a lawyer, and he said it really, really well. He said, in this world of LLM, ever more powerful LLMs,
mhm,
what we need to learn is we need to learn the 90 to 95% of what they can do.
mhm,
And then we need to learn what the 5% of what they can't.
mhm.
Because I haven't found anything that is mission critical that doesn't still require human in the loop. And Ray and I, we were joking about this. Look at my hair. Okay, if AI was great, I wouldn't look like this weird face, right?
I
This is
remember the episode of Star Trek where that happened. Like you got
right,
caught in
right?
the
This
warp
is
in the warp.
rough enough that the overlords aren't gonna. They can't even determine hair from wall,
Yeah,
right?
what's up with that AI? I mean, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's true, right? It's
mhm,
true. So the point is there's a two-part for learning. The first part is you have to understand what AI can do. And SQL is a really good example. I am an old DBA, long time ago. I wrote 3 books on SQL, so I should know, right? So I was testing for Google. It's released now, Gemini and BigQuery. And I'm
mhm,
a real good tester for that because I'm pretty fluent in SQL. And in the beginning, the tuned model for that didn't write what I would consider very usable SQL, and they
mhm,
just kept getting feedback and tuning it and making it better. And I would say that about 90% of the time now, it writes SQL, so I don't have to. So what does that mean for learning? Sorry, no shortcuts. You still have to learn whatever it is you're validating because the
mhm,
AI is not going to take it over. Whether it's legal, whether it's technical, whether it's medical, it just is not going to happen. It's just
yeah.
not. I don't believe in the whatever it's called, where AI just takes over everything. I just haven't seen it. Like seriously, if it can't do hair, it can't do medical.
Yeah, there's
So,
definitely, I think that obviously there's has a lot of capabilities, and I think the way that we approach how we solve problems is going to change. But there are some missing things, and it's not just the hair and the warp speed. I think there's something about the way that I like to think it is AI has every option available to it, but it can't pick a good option or the adequate option. And so I think it's almost like what we used to call analysis paralysis. Like when you have too much information,
yeah,
picking one that is relevant and understanding things outside the immediate sort of environment that you're in is almost impossible. And that's why, I mean, this report that I showed you, it looks great, but oftentimes I find that there's some data here that I don't want, or it
yep,
doesn't exactly give it to me in the right format, and it takes a lot of prompting and a lot of knowledge about exactly what I need. I have to make sure that I understand not necessarily the mechanics of how I wanted to do something, but I need to know, basically what information I need. And that's, to me, maybe one of the more important things. So recently, Gemini 2.5 models added this thing called thinking or reasoning capabilities, but they added this thing called a thinking budget, which allows you to really control it. It's given them the capability of making something like Gemini Flash Lite incredibly inexpensive for people to use. So what are you looking forward to in terms of features? It seems like we always get surprised with amazing things, but what would you like to see coming up in future Gemini releases? Like, don't
yep.
even try to think 5 years. I always think we're so bad at, predicting the future. I always loved like those 1970s movies because they're so bad at predicting like 2025. But what do you think could be a benefit to maybe developers?
Yeah, I'll answer that, but I have to say something about thinking. Thinking is so new to the public that they don't grok it yet. And I'm
Mhm,
telling you, when you talk about things to learn, turn on the thinking, use it because it teaches you how to prompt, which people still
mhm,
don't know how to do. Now, I have a bias because I'm actually not a mathematician. I'm not a computer scientist. I'm a linguist. And I
mm,
feel like I'm actually classically trained. That is my college degree in linguistics.
mm,
And I studied a bunch of human languages. And I feel like it's my superpower right now. Not that I'm the best prompter in the world, But honestly, when I go to introduce Gen AI technologies to anybody, I have yet to find people that really understand the importance of prompting. They just don't get it. They still think, especially developers, they think it's a algorithm, data in, does something, data out. It's not that. It's just really not that. It's a large language model. So thinking feature, if you read the thinking, which people don't want to do, they just want the answer, you can really learn how to prompt effectively. So I got to give the pitch for that. In terms of features that I would like to see, it's out there, but it's, in my opinion, not easy to use. There is in Gemini some tooling for comparison between model versions and model version parameters. It's called side-by-side comparison. It's an API. There's some notebooks. I linked it in my course, but I didn't show it because it's like a typical thing that's in an early state. If you really want to nerd out, you can use it, and it's probably better than just writing it from scratch. But I want it to be easier to use. Like I want it to be more clickable. Like, here's a model, here's what I'm trying to do, here's another model, click, 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 which one's better? But do it not just in the output, like do the mini shot where you run it like 1,000 times and different parameters. And so it's quantitative. It's like a unit test for LLMs, basically.
Interesting. Yeah, I know that I always like to get the models to help me in coming up with the prompts. Often I know that there are tools that, or really just with Gemini, you could just ask it to, hey, here's my basic idea for the prompt, help me expand it. I think you can really see a good example of that when you use the deep research tool, in that you type in something simple and then it assembles like a good set of instructions for accomplishing the task. Even if you just read that, you wait you to organize your thinking. And if you like, I know I tell people oftentimes it's really good to, maybe if you're writing something, type in the target audience. And if you don't know what that, how to come up with the target audience, just feed the model a bunch of your writing and then ask it to come up with a sample target audience, and then repurpose that in future documents. And I know for like image prompting, I do the same thing. I can't think of a really good description. So I say, hey, here's my basic idea, kind of come up with some other, potential, visual things that you could do here. And I think, yeah, maybe we need to be teaching people how to be successful in prompting with the tools. I know you're talking about linguistics. I'm, English is my second language. And so I have a little bit of experience. I mean, and I don't know any like Klingon or anything, but I know that for me, another language is always difficult, because I had to learn a lot about structure. And I know that some of these tools were originally built as translators. And so they work from context. Context is really important. And if you, just like when you translate from one language to another, you don't translate word by word. You first have to understand what the person is trying to say, and then you translate the meaning. And that's kind of how these tools work. They have to have a meaning, absorbed, and then they work from the meaning. So the quality of that meaning is really important. And that's why I like to use the deep research to be the sort of context for whatever else I'm working on. So what else can you tell us from linguistics? That's so interesting. I never.
Well, yeah, I just see people doing stuff like, again, developers want to code, right? So they want to get to the parameter tuning, they want to get to whatever. So like, I'll just give a very concrete example. I've been literally like every week I have to say to developers, when you're doing your prompt, you want to start with act as an expert in whatever. Because if you want to think about it mathematically, you've got a mega dimensional space. And what that prompt preface is doing is it's helping to point in the many dimensional space that this model was trained on, where in that space it should start. You're using words to translate to a location mathematically. I don't know, maybe I'm just too nerdy here. I used to, like, before all this stuff, I used to do multidimensional expression language for SQL. And I wrote a book about it. So to me, in my mind, I can just sort of see, like, you're using words to target the many dimensional space. And if you don't do that, then if you just ask and you don't get the context, then you're just making the whole thing less likely to be successful. But that seems to be quite a challenge for developers to remember that, because they just don't think that way. They're just like, well, how do I write this method in Python? And I'm like, no, 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 no. As a person who blah, 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 blah context in for blah, 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 blah audience, you know.
Yeah, it's like we have to teach people kind of a new language for not programming, but prompting. And you have to understand that it's a little bit different. And it has its own set of challenges. That's fantastic. So next week, I'm bringing in another author called Dylan Davis. He did a course on vibe coding. It's one of his first courses. I've done a lot of work there. I was really curious from your enterprise perspective, high-end developers, what's your take on vibe coding? How do you think developers should try to be using AI-assisted coding in general?
Yeah, so I sort of had my moment a couple years ago when, as a cloud architect, I often am tasked to make POCs. And it's, like every different language, every different library, I can't possibly know this stuff, right? So old world, Stack Overflow, Google, whatever. So 2.5 years ago, I had a Python desktop app that my job was to make a POC of it running somehow magically optimally on Google Cloud. So intranet website. So, I hardly even knew what Python Flask was. I thought, well, that seems like a likely candidate. So following what I just said, as an expert in Python Flask website, lightweight website development, please take this. And I took an image. of the output. And I said, please, and you can do it more now, but just think of this like 2.5 years ago. And I went from that to deployment with Terraform in like a few hours. And I was like, oh, well, okay, I'm doing this now.
It's a thing, right? That's what happens, I think, with vibe coding, that you're like, this is not going to work. And then you try it and you're like, wow, that was actually it's pretty good code. Like that first thing you do is you make it do something that you already know how to do just to see what it does. Like see if the code is any good. And then it does it and you're like, man, that code is really good. And it did it fast and faster than me for sure. And I didn't have to look anything up. So it's another sort of perspective change that happens, I think.
My reference hard problem to see how good a model is at vibe coding is I've done some, mostly POC, to be honest with you, but I've done actually quite a bit of work in quantum computing, quantum programming. I had a book club on it and I have a course on it. So I know the hello world problems that are harder because it's quantum than hello world. And so I always, when there's a new model, that's one of my fun things to do. Maybe I should get a life, but whatever. I will say, try to give as little context as possible and see how close it can get to building, 6-qubit simulator. And the closer it gets, I'm like, all right, level up. All right.
Wow. I am so impressed because number one, you did that 2 years ago. Like that was like ChatGPT 3.5 or 3.0, not even anything remotely good. So that's impressive. And my test is usually just a Tetris game to see how good it does it. So I'm nowhere near that. I mean, I come from more of a design background, like full stack development with a design background. So I'm not into the qubits, but so cool. So tell me, what else are you working on these days? Besides that, you already previewed that you have a new course coming out, which I got to check out. But what else you got?
Yeah, so Agent Space is coming out just shortly, and then I'm prepping, and I'm going to be recording a kind of an intro course on VO3. Nice. So that's going to be really, really fun. And then I'm working on a series. This will be like later this summer on cloud DevOps for all the 3 clouds. That's my personal goal. See how much I can, because it's really hard to stay up on all the clouds, right? And so this is like self-interest, right? Like, so I'm like, okay, how much can I push off in the Azure environment on the LLM tools? Because they're all integrated now. And the Google ones I've been testing. And then the Amazon has Amazon Q and then the other things too, right? So like how much of this can I push off in terms of, like setting things up, troubleshooting? I had an aha moment with, well, Google has it now too, but with Amazon, where it was like misconfiguration, very common thing of like EC2 instance firewall. And I tried it with Q. This is like a year ago. And it created like a network map and showed like where the config. And I was like, oh yeah. I don't want to read all those firewall, you know what I mean? Yes. And Google does that too now. And so again, that's sort of one of my personal things. First, learn it. and then, help my clients to be able to leverage that. Because, wouldn't it be great if we didn't have to read logs anymore? Wouldn't it be great? Or grep
Yes.
logs?
That's so true. And I really disliked doing like triple left joins, which I probably should have never done, but I ended up in doing some bad things with SQL. So I'm really looking forward to the future. I think that we're going to be solving different problems altogether. I'm so excited that you're doing something on VO because it's such a amazing tool and model. I can't wait. I know that they have this thing also called the Flow that's kind of like a director. I haven't really gotten into that, but that has the potential of just dramatically changing the industry. We know Midjourney just released their video models, so I think this is going to be probably the year of video, and a lot of people are going to be looking for some guidance on that. So that's super exciting. So awesome talking to you. I could talk to you for hours, especially about nerdy kind of topics and linguistics. I'm definitely going to do that offline. So thank you so much for coming. And we will talk again soon. And maybe you can come back and we can talk maybe after you drop the VO model course so we can see what's going on. So again, thank you for coming. And I'll talk to everyone next week. As I mentioned, we have Dylan. We're going to be talking about the vibe coding. And I've been playing around with so many of them that I just did a course on Codex, and I just finished something on Claude Code, and of course the GitHub ones. And I'm getting, like you, I think I'm getting like that really interesting perspective of what you can do. I know that I love the GitHub products. You and I are both into GitHub as well. GitHub's got some competition now, and we haven't really seen that before. And I think that's when things get interesting with things like Cursor. So we'll be covering that next week. Again, Ling, thank you so much for coming, and we'll see everyone soon.
Thank you.